Hello everyone, this is RaySpace back in Realism Overhaul Sandbox and Kerbal Space Program 1.12. I'm here once again with the SLS from Artemis Construction Kit, and I wanted to fix its boosters, making sure that they have the right burn time. So they had 1 minute and 48 seconds. I want them to get 2 minutes and 7 seconds, I believe is what would be correct. And I also want to test out what would happen if we replace the RL-10s just with BE-3Us from the New Glenn rocket. Not change the stage at all. We just take these off and put the BE-3Us on. First, I should check whether I can fit them on. That would be a good thing to do. So I have a BE-3U there. Yes. So we can. They don't have as big a nozzle ratio as the RL-10s. At least this version does. And I don't know what the version on the New Glenn actually has. I would have to have that information. And I believe they have higher chamber pressure as well. But they probably should be bigger. But they probably, the model might be a little bit small. But in any case, we're gonna see how that goes after I check this out. Or maybe I could do it at the same time. Well, we should check out what the maximum low Earth orbit payload capacity of this is, because there's no benefit to making that swap for the moon. There's only a benefit to making that swap for low Earth orbit. And so we should check out what ascent guidance can do with this rocket to low Earth orbit first. And then we'll see what it can do with the BE-3Us. The BE-3Us have less efficiency than the RL-10s, and we really don't need the upper stage's help in getting to orbit with lunar payload. So it'll only hurt as far as the lunar payload capacity is concerned. So 48 is the best we can do here. They're also heavier than the RL-10s. So the only benefit would be to Earth orbit. And we'll see what that is. So let's try and get the Earth orbit capacity here. Should be interesting. Ascent guidance. I'm not too sure ascent guidance understands how to handle this rocket very well. In theory, it's supposed to get like 130 tons. So that's 130 tons. I somehow doubt that's going to happen. So I've edited the thrust curve, and let me just show you what I've done. So this is the bit of the configuration for the 5 segments version of the Bola booster. If we take a look in Kerbal, if you want to get the 5-segment version, you click on the engine UI and you can switch between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I've only changed the 5-segment version. And so that's what you see here. Now, where did they get the curve from? They just copied it from the 5-segment boosters that are currently on it. And that's probably why the timing is off. So they went to the Realism Overhaul configuration for the RSRM 5-segment version, and they just took this. And one of the quirks of that thrust curve is that it actually goes down and then goes up around here. And you can see this is the part I changed. Of course, I don't have the real numbers, which is why I've decided not to change them with high precision. I've just gone with 2 digits. And that's to show you that this is the part that has been changed. So previously the thrust here was higher. You can see the thrust here is going up, 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 and then goes down. Now we can flatten that out even more, but this will give us a little bit more duration compared to the original. The original is still on the 4-segment one. You can see it gets up to 93% thrust there. We really don't need that. That totally depends on grain configuration inside the booster. I've peaked it out at 88%, and then I'll probably smush it down even more. There's no good reason to limit the thrust up front, because if you limit the thrust up front, it's going to cause problems for the rocket. You need to, go. So here is the best place to reduce the thrust in order to increase the duration, and that's what I'm doing. Or we could just do it across the board. So let's test this out, and then if it all works out, I'll link it in the video description. Now, one other quirk to this version of the SLS is that if we take a look at the EUS, I noted that it has the wrong RCS ISP here. You can see the RCS ISP is 100 in vacuum, it says in the game. That's wrong. It should be something like 240. But it seems like the configurations have 240. This is the original configuration for the part, so this is the stock configuration. The stock configuration has 240 here. And then we take a look at the RO configuration for it. This is the EUS part. That's EUS. Yes, it got rid of the reaction wheel. Very good. And here we have, well, it's also 240, and that's key 0. Yes, it's key 0. So why is it 100 in the game? I don't know. I have not figured it out. So that is a peculiarity. So everybody can figure that right, but something is changing it, which is not good. I wonder if it's RO, because RO likes to change things globally, but I don't know why. Alright, so let's try this out with the changed boosters and see about the low Earth orbit capacity. Okay, so we know I should increase the booster pitch rate a bit, but overall I'm not thrilled with how the initial ascent works with this. But anyway, we'll go with it for now. All right, and let's see if it can carry it. At liftoff, it says we have 1,200 to deal with the drag, and that goes down pretty quickly. But we'll see. Well, it still did a somewhat harsh turn there. No, it's still ending at the same time. Well, I'm gonna have to do an across-the-board reduction. Looks like I need to flatten out much more. I will work on that while it's trying to get to orbit. So I have no idea what the actual thrust curve on the Bola booster is. I'm just trying to get the right burn time. And here it has to keep a lot of pitch. It really shouldn't have turned so quickly initially. Whenever it decided to go to this pitch, I think it didn't need to turn that quickly to this pitch. I would have preferred if it went slower right there. Seems to be positing another stage that we don't have here. So we don't have enough right now. Alright, staging. Oh, the interstage. Oh no, we lost an engine. Well, that's not gonna do any good, is it? Well, I didn't expect to lose an engine. Nobody expects to lose an engine, I suppose. Well, let's see what happens. I don't know why. Let me just reset guidance. It says do not press, but it seems a bit confused with that extra stage that doesn't exist, so. It still seems a bit confused. It doesn't know whether it needs 4,700 or well, now it's settled on 5,000. No, 4,700 or 5,200. It doesn't need either. So it was confused before, and it is still confused. Well, I don't have the time to sit through this without Fizz Warp, that's for sure. I strongly doubt it is pitching right at the moment, nor has it actually left enough time to apoapsis. We are going down. Technically, we still have enough delta V to make orbit, regardless of what that says. But we don't have a whole lot of time before we hit the atmosphere. Well, we're definitely going down too fast at this point. Okay, well, there's no way when we're hitting the atmosphere like this, we're not gonna be happy, right? No. Anyway, we need to see about the booster fix. So I've changed the numbers, and I'll restart, and we'll see whether the new numbers are better and get us closer to 2 minutes and 7 seconds. It's not necessarily great to have the boosters hang out for longer, mind you. It's actually hurting the situation because we're carrying the dry mass and they're providing less mass for us. It'd be better if they just go off quicker. But then the core stage is left with relatively low thrust weight ratio if they burn out before 2 minutes and 7 seconds. So that's not great, and then it has to pitch up a whole lot. It all depends on whether the boosters are made to toss us up a little bit higher, which they should have been if Ascent Guidance knew what it was doing. But anyway. Yeah, let's try it out with the fixed numbers and see what happens. Alright, so I've done some more testing and I think I have the boosters at 2 minutes and 7 seconds. That's when Ascent Guidance will let them go. Technically, they should still have some thrust when they are let go, but Ascent Guidance waits until they're at 0 thrust, and they don't have the thrust tail off that they ought to right now. But I'll leave them be at the moment. At least they're getting to the right time. And I've decided to reduce our payload to 120 tons, though maybe we could carry the full 130 as long as we don't lose an RL-10, as we did on the previous launch. In order to reduce the chance that we're going to lose an RL-10, I've decided to add some separatrons here, and so those are staging at the same time, and actually I'll shift them a little bit. So hopefully that will solve that problem, but I'm not sure. We'll have to see. That doesn't seem right either. Middle. Okay. So 120 tons. Let's see if Ascent Guidance can do that. Alright, here we go. Engage autopilot. And off it goes. The clouds are once again blocking the view of the Cape. See, I mean, it could hold pitch for longer here. There's nothing... We really don't need it to turn as quickly. But whatever. So now the boosters still have some thrust here. It's still haphazard what I did. I also adjusted the ISP by like 1 second. And so they go off at 2 minutes and 7 seconds. I adjusted the ISP because it seemed like it would be more accurate based on what they said as far as the margin that it improved over the previous boosters. Well, at this point, it still potentially has enough for the 120 tons, it says, but we'll see. Yay, fairing sep. Okay. Oh, this time we have all 4 engines, and we have 3 minutes to apoapsis, but a 15-minute burn time. So we'll see. Delta V is fine for now. Okay, making orbit here with about 189 to spare, it says. Alright, so 189 as it said, and we got into orbit with 120 tons. So based on that, let's see how much more we could do, but we really shouldn't have less than that margin probably. So 9,855, so let's say we can go down to 9,700. Potentially 127 tons would be okay. Well, let's see if we can get the 130, the full 130 that we're supposed to be able to get, if we switch out for the more powerful engines, the BE3Us. Now, I don't know if the BE3Us have the same ratio between the hydrogen and oxygen that these do. That seems like a lot of thrust-weight ratio. 1.31? I mean, I know the thrust-weight ratio with the RL10s is low, but this might be a bit too high. So, just 2? And then we get 0.66 and the 3-minute and 44-second burn time. These really have a lot more thrust. They have, each one has 7 times the thrust of the RL10s. So yeah, it really cuts it down. It's just for the low Earth orbit payload. Alright, we'll try and mount it like this. I know it's not this simple, but it's a heck of a lot more doable than any other arrangement that you're likely to come up with in order to fix the situation and get a maximum payload to low Earth orbit. I'm going to remove the hydrogen and oxygen here and see what kind of ratio we have. It looks like these use more hydrogen. That might not be correct. I don't know what the actual mix is supposed to be for the engines, but anyway, optimizing, we get a little bit more here and a little bit more thrust weight ratio as well. Okay, let's make sure staging is a little bit better. Well, it only says 9,544, but we could get to orbit a little bit faster because we've got the better thrust, so we'll see how it works out. So SLS block to ACK BE3U. That's a whole lot of little letters around. Okay, let's go. Okay, I am changing nothing as far as ascent guidance is concerned. So if it's messed up in exactly the same way. Well, at this point after the turn, it's still reading that we have enough delta V and probably a little bit to spare. Off go the boosters. And I'll link the adjusted configuration in the video description. It should go in the same folder where you have the RO configurations for this mod for ACK, which by default should be a folder called Benji 10_Orion_RO. The actual mod is in Benji 10_Orion. So you would have to overwrite the file in there. Off go the fairings. Alright, staging. And here are our 2 engines. So functionally, I mean, it is the same stage as the upper stage of New Glenn, right? It's a little bit less mass. Actually, a lot less mass. When you think about a 3.5 minute burn time, of course, the upper stage of New Glenn has more burn time than that. But the upper stage of New Glenn has 2 of these engines, so it is not all that different. It's just smaller. It's smaller in terms of the amount of fuel carried, but it's larger in terms of the diameter of the hydrogen tank. The tanks on New Glenn are 7 meters in diameter, this is 8.4. But this is shorter, and the oxygen tank is smaller. Well, we can fizz warp through this. It looks like we're going to end up with 344 meters per second or so. Okay, final bit. Camera turn. And we're in orbit with 349 left. Alright, let's see how much more potentially we could get out of it then. As much as 145, but I'd be more comfortable with 140 tons. So 140 to 145 would be good. So there you have it. That's the benefit of putting the BE3Us on here, just 2 of them. And of course, we would expect a similar sort of benefit if we just put on a upper stage from New Glenn instead, but that would be a bigger change overall. And also it would limit the payload size, which is not good since we're increasing the payload capacity. We would like the payload size to still be 8.4 meters in diameter, or possibly more if we have a 10-meter fairing. But yeah, that is the effect of that. I'll put changed configurations in the video description. It's just one file. It's just the SLS file. And I'll leave it there for now. So this has been continued testing of the SLS from Artemis Construction Kit. With that, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time.